In today's information-rich world, we are constantly bombarded with information and data from all directions. But have you ever stopped to consider why you seek out certain information while avoiding others? I'll answer this question in this video. I'll introduce key motives driving our information seeking behavior. Organizations can be viewed as information processing systems where the flow and use of information are critical to decision making. I'll also explain how the three information seeking motives can be applied to optimize decision making in organizations. First, what is information seeking? In both the workplace and everyday life, we're constantly making decisions about what information to seek and what to ignore. But what drives our information seeking behavior? Information seeking is the active process of searching for, gathering, or requesting information to meet our needs or goals. By contrast, information avoidance is when we intentionally shy away from certain information. This is known as the ostrich effect, burying our heads in sand to avoid potentially unpleasant truth. Recent research has uncovered three key motives behind our information seeking behaviors: instrumental utility, hedonic utility, and cognitive utility. What does utility mean? In decision-making context, it refers to the value we place on the information, how useful, enjoyable, or mentally engaging the information is for us. Instrumental utility is about seeking information that helps us make decisions or take action. For example, you're a manager. You are now preparing for an important meeting. You get the data on team performance, deadlines, and current status of the project. This is instrumental utility. You are finding practical information that guides your decisions and actions in the meeting. It is the classic, how can this piece of information help me motive? One major problem in organizations is that it's often difficult to seek information with a high instrumental utility. That is, the information that is directly useful for our decision making. A common challenge is information overload. In today's data-rich environments, leaders are frequently bombarded with excessive amounts of information, from emails and reports to data dashboards. This abundance of information might seem beneficial. It can actually make it more difficult to discern which information is truly relevant. For example, a manager preparing for a project meeting may receive reports on everything from financial performance to HR updates, but the sheer volume of data make it difficult to focus on the key project milestones and risk. This leads to decision fatigue and delays because leaders sift through data and information to find what will genuinely guide their decision making. Another issue is the presence of organizational silos, where different departments or teams hold on their own information and do not share it across the organization. This lack of information sharing creates blind spots in decision making. For example, Team A has a key piece of information that is instrumental to Team B, but Team B is not aware of it due to organizational silos. As a result, Team B makes decisions with incomplete or outdated data. Given that part of a leader's job is to facilitate information flow among different teams and minimize organizational silos, it becomes critical for leaders to promote cross-functional communication. Here, cross-functional communication is the exchange of information across different departments or teams in our organization. If we look at organizational structure, each department or team tends to focus on specialized functions. Cross-functional communication breaks down silos by encouraging information sharing across different functions like operations, finance, and HR. The second information seeking motive is hedonic utility. It means we tend to seek information that makes us feel good and avoid what may upset us. The term hedonic comes from the Greek word, which means pleasure or delight. When it comes to decision making, hedonic utility drives us to gravitate toward information that brings comfort and satisfaction and avoids information that may cause discomfort or stress. Think about this in a leadership role. Imagine you are leading a team. When your team members give you compliments or tell you that everything is going smoothly, it feels great, right? That information has high hedonic utility. It boosts your mood and reinforces a positive feeling. Now, contrast that with a couple of team members who frequently bring up complaints about issues in the team. After 2 months of hearing those constant complaints, you may start avoiding those people. Why? Because their feedback causes frustration, and you naturally want to avoid that discomfort. You steer away from information that disrupts your sense of well being, even if that information may be very valuable. It is a natural pull toward positive reinforcement and distancing yourself from stress, regardless of whether the feedback could help improve the team's performance. What are consequences when leaders seek information primarily based on hedonic utility? If you avoid negative feedback, you will overlook important problems in the team or organization. This can allow small issues to escalate into larger crises because underlying problems go unaddressed. Consider negative feedback as the pain our body feels, a signal that something is going awry. Just as ignoring pain can lead to more serious health issues, dismissing negative feedback can allow problems in the organization to fester and grow. When you avoid addressing those pain signals, you miss opportunities for early intervention, which can prevent larger crises down the road. Over time, this avoidance results in a decline in team morale, performance, and trust because your team members feel their concerns are being ignored or minimized. In the long run, relying solely on positive information can erode a leader's credibility and weakens the overall health of the organization. The irony is that power often makes people more attracted to hedonic utility. Leaders in positions of power are typically more insulated from critical negative feedback, which creates a feedback loop where they become even more attracted to positive information. So, why does this happen? First, having power is associated with a heightened sense of control. When you have power, you often feel like you can control outcomes, even over uncontrollable outcomes. This makes it easy to focus on the positive. You think you can handle any problem that comes up later. Second, power inflates self-affirmation and ego. Leaders with power tend to have heightened self-confidence and ego. Positive information reinforces their beliefs in their own competence and success, which makes them more attracted to affirming information. Third, power reduces empathy. In an article titled Power and Perspectives Not Taken, published in Psychological Science in 2006, Galinsky and his team showed that individuals with power are less likely to take the perspectives of others. Taking others' perspectives is one of the three core dimensions of empathy, alongside emotional empathy and compassionate empathy. This dimension, often called cognitive empathy, refers to the ability to understand and mentally put oneself in another person's shoes. It's about seeing the world from someone else's point of view. Taking others' perspective allows for a better grasp of other people's thoughts, feelings, and motivations. Galinsky and his team's research demonstrated that power decreases one's ability to empathize and consider other people's viewpoints because power holders tend to focus more on their own needs and goals. As a result, leaders may become less sensitive to feedback or concerns from their team members. This is why they tend to avoid information that challenges their worldview or presents uncomfortable truths. This reduced empathy contributes to a leader's preference for affirming pleasant information, which reinforces their attraction to a hedonic utility. Finally, team members filter information. People in power are often surrounded by individuals who want to please them. This means leaders are more likely to hear what they want to hear, with team members withholding uncomfortable truths. As a result, the flow of positive information increases and the hedonic utility of information becomes even stronger. In an article titled Organizational Silence, a Barrier to Change and Development in the Pluralistic World, published in the Academy of Management Review in 2000, Morrison and Millikan defined organizational silence as the collective phenomenon where employees choose to withhold critical information, concerns, or feedback, often due to fear of negative repercussions or the belief that their input will not lead to meaningful change. Employees fear that speaking up may result in retaliation or damage to their relationships with supervisors, and in environments where past feedback has been ignored, they believe their input is futile. This creates an environment where important issues remain unspoken. In the end, this can create a dangerous feedback loop where leaders are increasingly disconnected from the reality of the challenges their organization or team is facing. The third information seeking motive is cognitive utility. It draws us to information on topics we find mentally stimulating or that we frequently think about. If you're passionate about quantum physics, you may constantly seek out books, academic articles, or podcasts on the topic of quantum physics, even when it is not directly tied to your current job responsibilities. You are feeding a mental interest that keeps you engaged and curious. How to apply cognitive utility in information seeking to organizational learning. Organizational learning refers to the process through which an organization acquires, shares, and uses information to improve its performance and adapt to change. It's a continuous cycle where employees learn from their experiences, share insights, and collectively improve the organization's practices. To leverage cognitive utility for organizational learning, leaders can align their team members' intellectual curiosities with the organization's goals. Here, curiosity means the desire to acquire new information without immediate practical use, often for the sake of satisfying personal interest. To motivate your team members to engage in organizational learning, you'll need to give them the autonomy to explore topics they are passionate about and show them how this interest can contribute to the organization's goals. This alignment between personal interest and organizational interest can drive engagement. It is also important to establish regular forums where team members can share what they've learned with others. This encourages organizational learning and helps the team members see the relevance of their personal interests to the broader organization. To sum up, humans' information-seeking behavior is driven by three key motives: instrumental utility, hedonic utility, and cognitive utility. The three motives shape how we seek, process, and respond to information. Interestingly, there are significant individual differences in how much weight people give to each of these three motives. Research suggests that about 1/3 of people strongly prioritize one motive over the others. Some people may be highly goal oriented and focused on instrumental utility, constantly searching for practical information to improve their productivity. Others may lean more toward hedonic utility, actively avoid information that causes stress and discomfort, such as difficult feedback from colleagues, while seeking out positive affirmations. Some people are naturally curious and gravitate toward cognitive utility. They regularly consume information on topics they find mentally stimulating, even if it is not immediately useful to their work. What's more, people's patterns of information seeking tend to remain stable over time. This suggests that they may be deeply linked to personality traits and mental health. For example, someone who is high in conscientiousness may consistently prioritize instrumental utility. They focus on efficiency and organization in their information gathering habits. Meanwhile, people prone to anxiety may favor hedonic utility and avoid information that may increase their stress levels. People with an open personality may exhibit high cognitive utility, constantly seeking new knowledge and intellectual stimulation. Those patterns not only influence how people approach their work, but it can also shape their long-term career development, decision-making, and overall well-being. As we've seen, our information-seeking behavior is far from random. It's shaped by our need for achieving our goals, our desire for emotional comfort, and our intellectual curiosity. Understanding the three motives of our information seeking behavior helps us become more intentional about how we seek and process information. For leaders, the awareness is key to motivating your team members and optimize decision making in organizations. So the next time you find yourself reaching for your phone to check the news and avoiding that difficult conversation, pause and ask yourself, which information seeking motive am I following? And is it serving me well? Be mindful of our information seeking motives. Be aware of how power changes our information seeking behavior and set guardrails to ensure that we don't fall into the trap of only seeking positive information. Actively seek out diverse viewpoints, encourage open communication, and create an environment where constructive feedback is valued. Remember, the most valuable information is not always the most comfortable. By balancing all three motives, instrumental, hedonic, and cognitive utility, you can create a more robust decision-making process in your organization, promote organizational learning, and ultimately lead more effectively. In the end, being an effective leader is not just about having all the answers, but about knowing how to seek out, process, and respond to the right information.